What happens when a woman's secret is exposed in public, not by a rumor, but by her own affair partner's careless words? I never thought I'd be asking myself that question, but here I am, Lysandra Vall, 34 years old, sitting in my living room staring at divorce papers that materialized out of nowhere like a bad dream. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. But let me back up. Let me tell you how a single introduction at a crowded party triggered a chain of events that led to the cold delivery of legal documents in my own home. Let me explain how someone who thought she controlled the story, me, couldn't survive when her husband's quiet patience became her reckoning. It started with what I called the quiet drift. That's what I told myself was happening between Mark and me. We'd been married 9 years, together for 12, and honestly, things had gotten boring, predictable. Mark, my 37-year-old IT project manager husband, had settled into this routine of work, dinner, television, bed, rinse and repeat, every single day. "You're home late again," Mark said one Thursday evening as I kicked off my heels in our apartment entryway. He was sitting at our kitchen table with his laptop, probably working on another project timeline or budget spreadsheet, always working. "Traffic was terrible," I replied, which wasn't entirely a lie. There had been traffic. I just hadn't been stuck in it until much later than necessary. "Lysandra, it's 9:30. Your office closes at 6. I rolled my eyes, heading to the refrigerator for a glass of wine. I had drinks with Cora. You remember my sister, right? The one who thinks I deserve to have some fun occasionally. Mark's fingers paused over his keyboard. "You could have texted." "I'm a grown woman, Mark. I don't need to check in every 5 minutes like I'm still in high school." I poured myself a generous glass of Pinot Grigio and leaned against the counter. "Maybe if you showed some interest in doing something other than staring at spreadsheets, I wouldn't need to find entertainment elsewhere." The hurt that flashed across his face was brief, but I caught it. Good. Maybe that would motivate him to actually plan a date night, or suggest we do something exciting for once. "Elsie asked where you were," he said quietly, closing his laptop. "I told her you were working late." Our 8-year-old daughter, a pang of something, guilt, hit my chest, but I pushed it away. I'm allowed to have a social life. Other mothers go out with friends. Other mothers usually mention it beforehand. "Oh, so now I need permission." I took a large sip of wine, feeling the familiar warmth spread through my chest. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Mark. You're so controlling. No wonder I need to get out and breathe sometimes." Mark stood up slowly, gathering his laptop and papers. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to understand why my wife has become a stranger." The words hung in the air between us. I should have said something reassuring. Should have explained that work had been stressful, that Cora was going through a rough patch and needed support, that I'd simply lost track of time. Instead, I doubled down. "Maybe the problem isn't that I've become a stranger. Maybe the problem is that you never really knew me in the first place." Mark stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." He headed toward our bedroom, then paused at the doorway. "Your phone buzzed while you were in the shower yesterday. Message from someone called D. I didn't read it, but I saw the preview. Something about meeting up soon." My heart skipped, but I kept my expression neutral. "D is Diana from accounting. We're working on the quarterly reports together." "Diana's number is saved as Diana in your phone. I've seen you text her before." "Damn. Maybe it's a different Diana, or maybe I changed how I save contacts. I don't know, Mark. I can't keep track of every single detail of my digital life for your peace of mind." Mark's expression was unreadable as he looked at me. Then he pulled out his phone and started deleting something. Calendar reminders, it looked like. "You're right. I shouldn't worry about every detail." After he disappeared into the bedroom, I sat at the kitchen table with my wine, telling myself I'd handled that perfectly. Mark was being paranoid and possessive, just like I'd told Cora. Just like my mother always said he would be eventually. Quiet men always turn controlling, Mum had warned me years ago. They seem nice at first, but then they want to own you. The truth was, Dee wasn't Diana from accounting. Dee was Devon Merrick, a 36-year-old freelance graphic designer I'd met at a coffee shop 3 weeks earlier. He was charming, spontaneous, and everything Mark wasn't. When Devon looked at me, I felt interesting again. Desirable. Like I was worth pursuing instead of just being taken for granted. It wasn't an affair. Not really. We just talked, flirted a little, exchanged numbers. I deserved to feel appreciated, didn't I? I deserved to feel like someone found me exciting enough to chase. What could be wrong with that? 2 weeks later, I was getting ready for what I'd told Mark was another girls' night with Cora. In reality, I was meeting Devon at his loft downtown. Nothing was going to happen. I wasn't that kind of woman. I just wanted to feel alive again. Have fun with Cora, Mark said as I applied lipstick in our bathroom mirror. He was giving Elsie a bath, and I could hear her giggling at something he'd said. They always had fun together. Mark was a good father. I had to give him that. I will, I replied, checking my appearance one more time. I'd chosen a black dress that hugged my curves. Nothing too revealing, but definitely more attention-grabbing than my usual mom uniform of jeans and cardigans. What are you two planning to do? Just dinner and maybe a movie. Girl talk. You know how it is. The lie came so easily I almost believed it myself. Devon's loft was everything our apartment wasn't. Exposed brick walls, modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He'd ordered Thai food and opened a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Mark and I usually spent on groceries in a week. You look incredible, Devon said, his eyes appreciating every inch of me in a way Mark hadn't in months. That dress is perfect on you. Thank you. I felt my cheeks warm with pleasure. When was the last time Mark had complimented my appearance? I couldn't remember. We talked about everything. Art, travel, dreams we'd put on hold. Devon had lived in 3 different cities, backpacked through Europe, started 2 businesses. His life was full of adventure and possibility. What about you? He asked, refilling my wine glass. What dreams did you have before marriage and motherhood? I wanted to be a photographer, I heard myself saying. Travel photography specifically. I had this plan to document small towns across America, capture the authentic moments that most people miss. What happened to that dream? I shrugged, suddenly feeling melancholy. Life happened, Mark happened, Elsie happened, responsibilities. It's not too late, you know. You're 34, not 94. The way he looked at me made me feel like anything was possible, like I was still the adventurous woman I'd been before I became just Mark's wife and Elsie's mom. We didn't do anything inappropriate that night. We talked, we laughed, he showed me his portfolio, but when he walked me to my car, he kissed my cheek and let his lips linger just a moment too long. I'd love to see you again, he whispered. I'd like that too. The next morning at work, I couldn't concentrate. I kept replaying the evening, the way Devon had looked at me, the way he'd made me feel special and interesting. My phone buzzed with a text from him around 10 a.m. Last night was amazing. You're amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. I felt giddy as I typed back. I had a wonderful time too. Lunch today. I know a great little place. I hesitated. Lunch seemed harmless enough. I can't today, but maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow it is. Can't wait to see you again, beautiful. Beautiful. Mark used to call me beautiful, back when we were dating. Now I was lucky to get a, you look nice, when I dressed up for special occasions. Someone's in a good mood today, said Janet, one of my co-workers, stopping by my desk. Hot date last night. I laughed, trying to sound casual. Just dinner with my sister, nothing exciting. But Janet's expression had changed slightly. That's funny. I could have sworn I saw you at Cafe Luna last night with a guy. Tall, dark hair, definitely not your sister. My stomach dropped, but I forced another laugh. You must have seen someone else. Cora and I went to that new Italian place on 5th Street. Janet looked like she wanted to say more, but my phone rang, giving me an excuse to turn away from her. For the rest of the day, I felt paranoid, wondering who else might have seen me with Devon, wondering what they might say. That afternoon, I decided to get ahead of any potential gossip. Mark's been so controlling lately, I mentioned casually to a few co-workers during our coffee break. He questions everywhere I go, wants to know who I'm with every second. It's exhausting. Really? Asked Sandra from HR. He seems so nice when he comes to office parties. Oh, he's charming in public, but at home, he wants to control every aspect of my life. I can barely have coffee with a friend without getting the 3rd degree. The seed was planted. If anyone saw me with Devon and mentioned it to Mark, I could claim he was just being possessive and jealous over an innocent friendship. That evening, Cora called while I was making dinner. "How was your night with that designer guy?" she asked. "Shh," I hissed, glancing toward the living room where Mark was helping Elsie with homework. "It was fine. Just dinner." "Just dinner? Come on, Lise. The way you described him, I thought you might finally have some excitement in your life. It's not like that, we're just friends." Friends don't usually put on their sexiest dress and spend 2 hours getting ready. She had a point. Okay, maybe I'm attracted to him, but I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm allowed to have male friends. Of course you are. You deserve some fun. Mark's a good guy, but let's be honest. He's boring as toast. When's the last time he surprised you with anything? I can't even remember. Exactly. You're young and beautiful, Liz. You shouldn't have to settle for boring just because you got married young. After dinner, Mark was cleaning up the kitchen while I helped Elsie get ready for bed. My phone buzzed with another text from Devon, a photo of the city skyline from his loft with the caption, "Wish you were here to see this sunset." I was typing a response when I heard Mark's voice behind me. "Who's that?" I jumped, quickly closing the message. "Just Cora. She's having drama with her roommate again." Mark nodded, but I caught him looking at my phone with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later that night, after I thought he was asleep, I snuck into the bathroom to respond to Devon's message. "Beautiful view. Wish I could see it too. Tomorrow night, I'm making dinner. Nothing fancy, just us." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "I'd love to." The next morning, Cora texted me, "Did you get home safe last night?" Mark seemed worried when I talked to him. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean you talked to Mark?" "He called looking for you around 10, said you weren't answering your phone and he was worried. I covered for you, told him we were at a loud bar and you probably couldn't hear it ring." I scrolled through my phone. Sure enough, 3 missed calls from Mark between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m. I'd been so caught up in my conversation with Devon that I'd put my phone on silent and forgotten about it. Worse, I realized Cora had sent me that photo from the bar, a selfie of the two of us from last month that she'd captioned "Sister Time." But if Mark had seen my phone when she texted it last night, I called her immediately. "Cora, what photo did you send me last night?" "Photo? I didn't send you any photo last night. I just texted to make sure you got home okay after Mark called." But when I checked our message thread, there it was. A photo of Devon and me at the bar, both of us laughing, his arm around my shoulders. The timestamp showed it was sent at 10:22 p.m., right after Mark's missed calls. Devon must have taken it and sent it from my phone as a joke. My hands were shaking as I realized what this meant. Mark had seen it. For 3 days after the photo incident, Mark said nothing. He went to work, came home, had dinner with us, helped Elsie with homework, watched TV, normal routine. But there was something different in the way he looked at me. Or rather, the way he didn't look at me. "Everything okay?" I finally asked him on Wednesday night as we got ready for bed. "Fine," he said, not looking up from his book. "You've been quiet lately." "Have I?" The casual indifference in his voice was somehow worse than anger would have been. I wanted to explain about Devon, to tell him it was innocent, but how could I, without admitting I'd been lying about where I was? Instead, I decided the best strategy was to act normal and wait for it to blow over. That Friday, Devon invited me to a party at some trendy downtown venue. It's a networking thing for creative professionals, he explained over lunch. Good food, good music, good people. You should come. I don't know. Mark and I usually do family movie night on Fridays. Bring him along. I'd love to meet your husband. The suggestion should have terrified me, but instead, I felt a thrill of excitement. Maybe it was time to stop sneaking around. Maybe Mark needed to see that other men found me interesting and attractive. Maybe a little jealousy would remind him what he had. Actually, that's not a bad idea, I said. That evening, I presented the invitation to Mark as casually as possible. There's a party downtown tonight, work networking thing. Want to come with me? Mark looked up from his laptop. Since when do you go to work networking events? Since I decided I should probably start caring about my career advancement, unless you'd prefer I stay stagnant forever. Of course not. I think it's great that you're thinking about your professional development. His reasonable response deflated my defensive attitude. So you'll come? Sure. Let me see if my mum can watch Elsie. Ruth Vole, Mark's 62-year-old mother, was a retired nurse who lived 20 minutes away. She adored Elsie and was always happy to babysit, but she'd been giving me strange looks lately during family dinners, like she was studying me, trying to figure something out. Everything all right with you and Mark? She'd asked me the previous Sunday while we were cleaning up after dinner. Of course. Why would you ask that? He seems distant lately. Sad. He's just stressed about work, I'd replied, but Ruth's sharp blue eyes suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Now, as Mark called his mother to arrange babysitting, I felt a flutter of nervousness. What if Devon said something inappropriate? What if Mark picked up on the chemistry between us? But when we arrived at the party, I felt confident and beautiful in my red cocktail dress. The venue was perfect, dim lighting, jazz music, well-dressed professionals mingling with drinks in hand. This was the kind of life I'd imagined for myself before I got trapped in suburban domesticity. Nice place, Mark said, looking around. He'd worn his best suit and looked handsome, I had to admit. How do you know about this event? A friend mentioned it, I said vaguely, scanning the crowd for Devon. I spotted him near the bar, talking animatedly with a group of people. He looked gorgeous in a charcoal grey suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. When he saw me, his face lit up with a smile that made my heart race. Lysandra! He approached us with his arms open, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a moment too long. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you. Devon, this is my husband, Mark. Mark, this is Devon Merrick. The two men shook hands, and I watched Mark's face carefully. He was polite but reserved, his project manager persona in full effect. Nice to meet you, Mark said. How do you and Lysandra know each other? We met at that little coffee place on 3rd Street, Devon replied, his hand moving to rest on the small of my back. I was immediately struck by how intelligent and beautiful she is. You're a lucky man. I felt Mark's eyes on me, but when I glanced at him, his expression was unreadable. Yes, I am, Mark said quietly. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. We mingled. I introduced Mark to a few people I'd met through Devon, and Mark was his usual polite, professional self. I found myself relaxing, enjoying the attention I was getting. Several people complimented my dress, and Devon made sure to include me in every conversation, treating me like I was the most fascinating person in the room. Mark, meanwhile, seemed content to observe. He nursed a single beer while I had 3 glasses of wine, and he listened more than he talked. I caught him checking his phone a few times, probably reading work emails. Your husband's very quiet, Devon murmured in my ear during a moment when Mark was in the bathroom. He's always like that in social situations, Not much of a party person. What about you? Are you a party person? The way he looked at me made my cheeks flush. I'm learning to be. That's when things started to go wrong. Devon had been drinking steadily all evening, and as the night progressed, he became more animated, more touchy, more possessive of my attention. When Mark returned from the bathroom, Devon was standing very close to me, his hand on my arm, as he told some story about a client. "Mark," Devon called out, his voice louder than necessary. "Come meet some people. I want to introduce them to my girl here." The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated. My girl. Every conversation in our immediate vicinity stopped. I felt the blood drain from my face as I saw Mark's expression change from polite interest to something much colder. "Your girl?" Mark asked quietly. Devon, oblivious to the tension he'd just created, laughed and squeezed my shoulder. "Well, not officially, but we've been getting pretty close lately, haven't we, Lise?" I wanted to disappear into the floor. "Devon, you're drunk. That's not—" "Oh, come on, don't be shy," Devon continued, his arm sliding around my waist. "Mark's a cool guy. He can handle knowing his wife has admirers, right, Mark?" The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I could feel people staring, could practically hear the gossip starting. Mark stood perfectly still, looking at Devon's arm around my waist, then at my face. "Actually," Mark said, his voice eerily calm, "I think I need some air." He turned and walked toward the exit without another word. "Mark, wait," I called after him, but he didn't stop. "Whoa," Devon said, finally seeming to realize he'd said something wrong. "Did I just screw up?" I pushed his arm away from me. "Yes, Devon. You screwed up badly." I hurried after Mark, but by the time I got outside, he was already getting into an Uber. I called his name, but he didn't look back. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "Getting a ride home. Stay and enjoy the party." I went back inside, my hands shaking, and found Devon at the bar. "I'm so sorry," he said immediately. "I had too much to drink. I didn't mean to cause problems." "What were you thinking?" I hissed. "Calling me your girl in front of my husband?" "It just slipped out. You know how I feel about you, and I guess I got carried away." "How you feel about me?" "Devon, I'm married. We're friends, that's all." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. We'd been flirting, texting constantly, having intimate dinners. I'd been emotionally cheating even if we hadn't crossed physical lines. "Are we just friends?" Devon asked, stepping closer. "Because it doesn't feel like friendship to me. And I don't think it feels like friendship to you either." Before I could respond, Cora appeared at my elbow. She'd arrived late to the party and missed the drama. "Where's Mark?" she asked, looking around. "He left," I said shortly. "Left? Why?" I glanced around and noticed several people were still looking in our direction, whispering among themselves. The damage was done. By tomorrow, half the city's professional network would be gossiping about Mark Voll's wife and her obvious affair. "Long story," I muttered. Cora looked between me and Devon, and I saw understanding dawn in her eyes. Oh no. What happened?" "Your sister's husband couldn't handle a little harmless flirtation," Devon said, signaling the bartender for another drink. "It wasn't harmless," I snapped, "and it wasn't just flirtation. You basically announced to a room full of people that I'm cheating on my husband." "Are you?" Cora asked quietly. The question hung between us. Was I cheating? We hadn't slept together, but we'd been having an emotional affair for weeks. I'd been lying to Mark, sneaking around, prioritizing Devon's attention over my marriage. "It's complicated," I said finally. Cora pulled me aside, away from Devon. "Liz, what are you doing? Mark is a good man. He loves you." "Mark takes me for granted. He's boring and predictable, and he treats me like a roommate instead of a wife." "So you decided to have an affair?" "It's not an affair. We're just friends who—" I stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded after what had just happened. "Friends don't introduce each other as my girl at parties," Cora said gently. "You need to go home and fix this with Mark." but I wasn't ready to face Mark yet. I was angry, at Devon for being reckless, at Mark for leaving me at the party, at myself for letting things get this complicated. He looked serious when he left, Cora warned as I gathered my purse to leave. She was right. Mark had looked serious, but I told myself he was just being dramatic. We'd have a fight. I'd explain that Devon was drunk and inappropriate, and eventually Mark would forgive me. I had no idea that Mark had already moved far beyond forgiveness. I came home to a dark, silent apartment. Mark's car was in the parking lot, so I knew he was there, but all the lights were off. I found him sitting in our living room, still wearing his suit, staring out the window at the city lights. "Mark," I said softly, "we need to talk." "Do we?" His voice was flat, emotionless. Devon was drunk. He didn't mean anything by what he said. He was just being stupid and inappropriate. Mark didn't respond. "Are you going to say anything?" "What would you like me to say, Lysandra?" The use of my full name instead of Liz sent a chill through me. "I'd like you to say you understand that I can't control what other people say about me." "Is that what happened? Someone else said something about you?" "Yes. Devon made an inappropriate comment because he'd been drinking. It had nothing to do with me." Mark finally turned to look at me, and something in his eyes made me take a step back. "Devon called you his girl, in front of a room full of people, including me. And your response was to tell him he was drunk, not to correct him." I was shocked. I didn't know how to respond. Most wives would have said, "I'm not your girl, I'm Mark's wife." But you didn't say that. He was right, and we both knew it. I was embarrassed. I wasn't thinking clearly. "No, I don't think you were thinking clearly. I don't think you've been thinking clearly for weeks." Mark stood up and walked toward our bedroom. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight." "Mark, that's ridiculous. You're punishing me for something I didn't do." He stopped and turned back to me. "What didn't you do, Lysandra? Didn't lie about where you were going? Didn't meet another man for dinner? Didn't let him put his hands on you in public? Didn't let him call you his girl without immediately shutting it down?" My mouth opened and closed like a fish. "How did you know about the dinners? The photo on your phone was a good start." Then I started paying attention. Really paying attention. "You've been spying on me." "I've been trying to understand why my wife has become a stranger who lies to me every day." "I haven't been lying." "Really? Where were you Tuesday night?" "With Cora." "Cora was at her book club Tuesday night. She posted about it on Instagram." Damn. I'd forgotten about Cora's book club. "Okay, I was with a friend. I didn't think you'd care." "Which friend?" "You don't know her." "Him. Which friend named him?" I felt trapped, cornered. The smart thing would have been to come clean, to apologize and promise to cut contact with Devon. Instead, I got defensive. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Mark. You're interrogating me like I'm a criminal instead of your wife. You're being controlling and paranoid." "Controlling?" I asked where you were. "You've been tracking my movements, checking up on me, going through my phone. I saw one message by accident and one photo that was sent while I was standing next to you. I haven't gone through anything." "Well, it feels like you're spying on me. It feels like you don't trust me." "I don't trust you. Not anymore." The words hit me like a slap. "How can you say that to me? I'm your wife. I'm the mother of your daughter." "Yes, you are, which makes this even more disappointing." Mark disappeared into the guest bedroom and closed the door quietly behind him. I stood in our living room, shaking with anger and something else. Fear, maybe. This wasn't going the way I'd expected. The next morning, Mark was gone before I woke up. He'd made breakfast for Elsie and left a note saying he had early meetings. Elsie seemed confused by the tension in the house. "Why did Daddy sleep in the other room?" she asked over her cereal. "He was just having trouble sleeping. Sometimes grown-ups do that." "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, sweetheart, everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine, and it got worse over the next few days. Mark was polite but distant, speaking to me only when necessary, and sleeping in the guest room every night. He came home from work, had dinner with us, helped Elsie with homework, then disappeared into his makeshift bedroom. On Sunday, we had dinner at Ruth's house, our usual weekly family meal. Ruth took one look at the tension between Mark and me and immediately went into mother hen mode. "What's going on with you two?" she asked, while Mark was outside, pushing Elsie on the swing set. "Nothing's going on. We're fine." Ruth's sharp eyes studied my face. "You don't look fine. Mark doesn't look fine either. He looks heartbroken. He's being dramatic over nothing." "Nothing? What kind of nothing?" I found myself telling Ruth about the party, about Devon's inappropriate comment, but I framed it as Mark being jealous and controlling over an innocent friendship. "So this Devon person called you his girl in front of Mark and a room full of people. He was drunk. It didn't mean anything." "And how do you know this Devon person?" "We met at a coffee shop. We're friends." Ruth was quiet for a long moment. "Lysandra, I've known Mark since he was born. He's not a jealous man. He's not controlling. If he's upset, it's because he has reason to be." "So you're taking his side?" "I'm not taking sides. I'm telling you that my son is hurting, and if you care about your marriage, you need to figure out why and fix it." That evening, my mother called while I was giving Elsie a bath. "Cora told me about some drama at a party," she said without preamble. "What's Mark's problem now?" I explained the situation to her, and her response was exactly what I'd expected. "Mark needs to grow up," she said dismissively. "You're a beautiful, intelligent woman. Of course, other men are going to be attracted to you. He should be flattered that he married someone other people want." "That's what I think too. He's always been too serious, too boring. Remember when you were dating? I told you then that he seemed like the type who would try to control you eventually. He's definitely gotten more controlling lately. They always do. Quiet men are the worst that way. They seem nice and supportive until you're married, then they want to own you." My mother's validation felt good, but it didn't solve my immediate problem. Mark was still sleeping in the guest room, still treating me like a polite stranger. On Wednesday, I decided to try a different approach. I made Mark's favorite dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and waited for him to come home. "This looks great," he said when he saw the table set with candles and our good dishes. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just thought we should have a nice dinner together." Mark sat down and served himself, but I could tell he was wary. We made small talk about work and Elsie's school, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Finally, over dessert, I brought it up. "I know you're upset about what happened at the party," I said. "I want you to know that I've cut contact with Devon. I told him his behavior was inappropriate and that we can't be friends anymore." This was a lie. Devon had been texting me daily, and I'd been responding, though I'd been more careful about when and where I checked my messages. Mark looked at me for a long moment. "When did you tell him that?" "Yesterday." "What did he say?" "He understood. He apologized for causing problems in my marriage." Another lie. Devon had actually said he thought Mark was being insecure and controlling, and that I deserved better. "I'm glad to hear that," Mark said, but his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "So can we move past this? Can we get back to normal?" "What's normal, Lysandra?" "You know, us, our family, the way things used to be." Mark was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. "I don't think we can go back to the way things used to be," he said finally. "Too much has happened." "Nothing happened. A drunk guy made an inappropriate comment at a party. That's not grounds for destroying our marriage." "Is that really what you think this is about? One comment at a party?" "What else would it be about?" Mark pulled out his phone and started scrolling through something. "Tuesday, October 3rd. You said you were having dinner with Cora, but Cora was at book club. Where were you?" My stomach dropped. I don't remember exactly." "Friday, October 7th. You said you were working late, but I called your office, and they said you'd left at 5:30. Where were you?" "Mark, this is ridiculous. You're keeping a timeline of my activities like I'm some kind of criminal." Sunday, October 15th. You said you were shopping with your mother, but your mother called the house looking for you at 3 p.m. Where were you? Each date hit me like a physical blow. Those were all days I'd been with Devon. Dinners, coffee dates, one afternoon when we'd gone to an art gallery together. I don't have to account for every minute of my day to you, I said, standing up from the table. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I was talking about. Controlling behavior. I'm asking my wife to tell me the truth about where she goes and who she's with. That used to be called normal marriage communication. You're interrogating me. I'm trying to understand what's happening to my family. Nothing is happening to your family. You're creating problems where none exist because you can't handle the fact that I have a life outside of this house. Mark stood up too, and for a moment I thought he was going to yell. Instead, he spoke very quietly. Elsie asked me yesterday if we were getting divorced. The words hit me like cold water. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times, but that we both love her very much. You should have told her that everything is fine. Is everything fine, Lysandra? I stared at him across our dining room table, this man I'd been married to for 9 years, and realized I didn't know how to answer that question. I don't know, I said finally. Mark nodded slowly. Neither do I. After our dinner conversation, Mark became even more distant. He was polite, functional, but it was like living with a ghost of my husband. He went through the motions of family life. Dinner, homework help, bedtime stories for Elsie. But there was no warmth, no connection. I told myself this was temporary. Mark was being dramatic, punishing me for something that wasn't even my fault. Eventually, he'd get tired of sleeping in the guest room and playing the martyr, and things would go back to normal. Meanwhile, Devon kept texting. Haven't heard from you in days. Everything okay? Miss talking to you. Coffee later. Your husband can't control who you're friends with. That last message resonated with me. Mark was being controlling. He was trying to isolate me from my friends, make me account for every moment of my day. This was exactly what my mother had warned me about. I started responding to Devon's messages again, but I was more careful. I deleted our conversations after reading them and only texted him when Mark wasn't around. Can't do coffee, but I miss talking to you too, I wrote back. Want to meet for lunch tomorrow? I promise to behave myself. I hesitated, then typed, okay, but somewhere discreet. We met at a small cafe across town, far from anywhere Mark or his co-workers might go. Devon looked genuinely remorseful when he saw me. I'm so sorry about the party, he said immediately. I had too much to drink and I said something stupid. I never meant to cause problems in your marriage. Mark's being ridiculous about it, but yes, it caused problems. What kind of problems? I found myself telling Devon everything about Mark's interrogations, his timeline of my activities, the way he was treating me like a criminal. That's not okay, Devon said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. You're a grown woman. You have the right to have friends, to go places, to live your life. That's what I keep telling him, but he won't listen. Some men can't handle having a wife who's independent and attractive. They get insecure and try to control everything. My mother warned me about this years ago. She said quiet men always turn controlling eventually. Devon nodded sympathetically. What are you going to do? I don't know. I love Mark, but I can't live like this. I can't be under surveillance in my own marriage. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who trusts you, who appreciates you, who doesn't try to control you. The way he looked at me made my heart race. Devon, I know you're married. I respect that. But I also can't pretend I don't have feelings for you. You're incredible, Lysandra. You're beautiful and intelligent and funny, and any man would be lucky to have you in his life. I felt tears prick my eyes. When was the last time Mark had said anything like that to me? When was the last time he'd made me feel special or appreciated? I should go, I said, but I didn't move. I'll wait, Devon said quietly. However long it takes, whatever you decide, I'll wait. That afternoon, I went home feeling confused and emotional. Mark was already there, sitting at his laptop at the kitchen table. He looked up when I came in, and I wondered if he could see the guilt on my face. "How was your day?" he asked politely. "Fine. Busy at work." He went back to his laptop. I looked over his shoulder and saw that he had several browser tabs open: legal websites, divorce information, child custody guidelines. "What are you looking at?" I asked, my heart starting to race. Mark closed the laptop. "Just research for a project at work." But I'd seen enough to know he was lying. Mark was researching divorce. That night, I lay awake in our bed, alone since Mark was still sleeping in the guest room, and tried to figure out how things had gotten so out of control. 6 weeks ago, we'd been a normal family. Not perfect, maybe a little boring, but functional. Now Mark was researching divorce lawyers, and I was having secret lunches with another man. Maybe I should tell Devon I couldn't see him anymore. Maybe I should focus on fixing my marriage instead of running away from it. But the next day, Devon sent me a text that changed everything. "Saw this and thought of you." It was a link to a photography workshop in Colorado. Travel photography, exactly what I'd told him I'd always wanted to do. "It's in 3 months," he wrote. "We should go together." The idea was intoxicating. 3 days in Colorado, learning photography, exploring new places, feeling alive and adventurous again. When was the last time Mark had suggested we do something exciting together? When was the last time he'd remembered a dream I'd shared with him? "I can't," I wrote back. "I'm married." "You're married to someone who doesn't appreciate you, someone who tries to control you instead of supporting your dreams. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be." That evening, I decided to test something. Over dinner, I mentioned the photography workshop to Mark. "That sounds interesting," he said. "You should look into it." "It's in Colorado. I'd have to travel." "That's fine. Mum could watch Elsie, and I can handle things here." His easy agreement should have made me happy, but instead it annoyed me. He didn't care enough to be jealous. He didn't care enough to want to come with me. "Don't you want to know who I'd be going with?" I asked. Mark looked up from his plate. "I assume you'd be going alone, unless Cora wants to join you." "What if I wanted to go with a friend? A male friend?" The question hung in the air between us. Mark set down his fork and looked at me directly. "Are we talking about Devon?" "I'm talking hypothetically." "No, you're not. You're asking if I'd be okay with you traveling to Colorado with the man who called you his girl at a party 3 weeks ago. So you wouldn't be okay with it? Would you be okay with me traveling to Colorado with a woman who called me her guy in front of you and a room full of people?" I didn't answer, because we both knew the answer. "I thought you said you'd cut contact with him," Mark said quietly. "I did." "Then how do you know about a photography workshop in Colorado?" Caught again. I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. "Fine. I've been texting with him occasionally, as friends, because I refuse to let you control who I can and can't talk to." Mark nodded slowly. "I see. Don't you have anything else to say?" "What would you like me to say?" "I'd like you to fight for me. I'd like you to care enough to get angry or jealous or something other than this cold, polite indifference." "You want me to fight for you while you're texting another man about traveling together?" "I want you to act like you love me." "I do love you, but I don't know how to fight for someone who doesn't want to be fought for." The conversation ended there, but something had shifted. Mark's calm acceptance of my emotional affair felt like permission, like he was giving up on us. Over the next few days, I found myself texting Devon more frequently. I complained about Mark's emotional distance, his lack of passion, his willingness to just let our marriage drift apart. "You deserve so much better," Devon kept telling me. "You deserve someone who fights for you, who appreciates you, who makes you feel alive." I started to believe him. I also started to get careless. I texted Devon during family dinner, during Elsie's bedtime routine, while Mark was in the same room. Part of me wanted to get caught. Part of me wanted Mark to see what he was losing and finally fight for our marriage. But Mark didn't fight. He just got quieter, more distant, more methodical. He started staying late at work. He started taking phone calls in private. He started keeping his laptop locked with a password. "What are you working on?" I asked one evening, finding him at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. "Just some financial planning," he said, gathering the papers into a neat stack, "making sure we're prepared for the future." "What kind of future planning?" "The responsible kind." That weekend, Ruth came over to watch Elsie while Mark and I went to dinner. It was the first time we'd been alone together in weeks, and I hoped it might help us reconnect. Instead, Mark spent most of the dinner asking me specific questions about dates and times, places I'd been, people I'd seen. He was building a case, I realized, documenting everything. "This feels like a deposition," I said finally. "I'm just trying to understand the timeline of events." "What timeline? What events?" "The timeline of when my wife started lying to me, the events that led to her having an emotional affair." "I'm not having an affair." "What would you call it?" A friendship with someone who actually appreciates me." "Someone you lie to your husband about, someone you sneak around to see, someone who wants to take you on romantic trips." "It's not romantic." "Isn't it?" I stared at Mark across the restaurant table, this man I'd been married to for 9 years, and realized I didn't want to lie anymore. "Maybe it is," I said. "Maybe I need some romance in my life since I'm not getting it at home." Mark nodded and signaled for the check. "Thank you for being honest." The ride home was silent. When we got to the apartment, Ruth took one look at our faces and quickly gathered her things. "Everything all right?" she asked Mark quietly. "We're working through some things," he replied. After Ruth left, Mark went straight to the guest bedroom. I followed him. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" "What would you like me to say, Lysandra?" "I'd like you to say you're sorry for pushing me away. I'd like you to say you'll try harder to be the husband I need." Mark sat down on the bed and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What kind of husband do you need?" "One who pays attention to me. One who makes me feel special and appreciated. One who wants to do exciting things with me instead of just watching TV every night." "One like Devon?" "Maybe." The word hung between us like a confession. "I see," Mark said finally. "Well, I guess that settles it." "Settles what?" But Mark didn't answer. He just pulled out his laptop and went back to whatever he'd been working on before dinner. The next morning, I woke up to find an envelope on the kitchen counter with my name on it. Mark was already gone. Another early meeting, according to the note next to the coffee maker. I looked at the envelope. It was thick, official-looking, with a law firm's return address in the corner. "You should read this," Mark had written on a sticky note attached to the front. I stared at the envelope for a long time, my heart pounding. I knew what it was. I knew what it meant, but I wasn't ready to face it yet. Instead, I tossed it aside and went to get ready for work. Whatever was in that envelope could wait. Mark was just trying to scare me, trying to manipulate me into cutting contact with Devon. But the envelope sat there all day, like a bomb waiting to explode. When I got home that evening, Mark was sitting at the kitchen table again, more papers spread in front of him. He looked up when I came in. "Did you read it?" "I've been busy." "It's important." "I'm sure it is. More financial planning." "Something like that." I made dinner, helped Elsie with homework, gave her a bath, read her a bedtime story. Normal family routine, except Mark barely spoke to me, and the envelope sat on the counter like an accusation. Finally, after Elsie was asleep, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I opened the envelope. The first document was a petition for divorce. The second was a proposed custody arrangement. The third was a detailed financial disclosure showing exactly how our assets would be divided. My hands were shaking as I read through the papers. Mark had been thorough. methodical. He documented everything: our income, our debts, our property, our daughter's needs. He'd also documented my affair: dates, times, locations, text message screenshots, photos from social media, a complete timeline of my relationship with Devon. "How?" I whispered. Mark looked up from his laptop. "How what? How did you get all this information? You weren't as careful as you thought you were, and I'm good with technology." I felt sick. "You've been spying on me. I've been protecting my interests, and Elsie's interests." "This is insane, Mark. You can't divorce me because I have a friend." "I'm not divorcing you because you have a friend. I'm divorcing you because you've been having an emotional affair, lying to me about it and refusing to take responsibility for your choices." "I haven't done anything wrong. Haven't you?" Mark closed his laptop and looked at me directly. "You've been meeting another man in secret. You've been lying about where you go and who you're with. You've been texting him constantly, deleting the messages so I won't see them. You've been planning trips together. You've told him things about our marriage that you haven't told me. You've let him touch you in public and call you his girl without shutting it down." Each accusation hit me like a physical blow because they were all true. "And when I've tried to talk to you about it, you've lied, deflected, and blamed me for being controlling. You've told people I'm emotionally abusive. You've painted me as the villain in a story where you're the one betraying our marriage." "Mark, I'm done, Lysandra. I'm done being lied to. I'm done being blamed for your choices. I'm done pretending this marriage can be saved when you're already emotionally invested in someone else." I stared at the divorce papers, trying to process what was happening. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "What about Elsie? What about our family?" "Elsie deserves better than parents who lie to each other and live like strangers. She deserves better than a mother who prioritizes her affair partner over her family." "He's not my affair partner." "What is he then?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. What was Devon to me? A friend? A potential lover? A fantasy of a different life? "I don't know," I said finally. "Well, you have time to figure it out now." Mark stood up and gathered his papers. "The divorce papers are straightforward. I'm asking for joint custody with primary residence for Elsie. I'm not asking for alimony, and I'm willing to split our assets 50-50. "You've already filed these?" "Tomorrow morning." I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. "Mark, please, can't we try counseling? Can't we work on this? I suggested counseling 6 months ago when I first noticed you pulling away. You said I was being dramatic. I didn't know you were serious." "I was serious. I've been serious about saving our marriage for months, but you've been serious about ending it." "That's not true. Isn't it? You've chosen Devon over me at every opportunity. You've chosen lying over honesty. You've chosen to blame me instead of taking responsibility for your actions." Mark headed toward the guest bedroom, then paused at the doorway. "I loved you, Lysandra. I loved our family. But I won't be married to someone who doesn't want to be married to me. I do want to be married to you." "No, you don't. You want to be married to the idea of me while having an affair with Devon. You want the security of marriage with the excitement of infidelity. You want to have your cake and eat it too. That's not... It is. And I'm done being the safety net for your midlife crisis." The guest bedroom door closed with a quiet click, leaving me alone in the kitchen with divorce papers and the ruins of my marriage. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, reading and rereading the divorce papers, trying to understand how my life had fallen apart so quickly. 6 weeks ago, I'd been a married mother with a stable, if boring, life. Now I was facing divorce, custody battles, and the complete destruction of my family. At 3 a.m., I called Devon. "Liz, what's wrong? It's the middle of the night." "Mark's divorcing me," I said and started crying. "What? Are you serious?" "He filed papers. He has evidence of our relationship. He's documented everything." "Shit. I'm so sorry. This is my fault." "It's not your fault. It's his fault for being controlling and paranoid and— Actually, Devon interrupted, maybe this is a good thing. I stopped crying. What? Think about it. You've been miserable in that marriage for months. You've told me how boring Mark is, how he doesn't appreciate you, how he tries to control you. Maybe this is your chance to be free. Free? Devon, I have a daughter. I have a life here. I can't just be free. You can start over. We can start over. Together. The suggestion should have thrilled me, but instead it made me feel sick. You want me to leave my daughter? Not leave her, but you said Mark wants joint custody, right? So you'd still see her all the time, but you'd also have time for yourself. Time for us. I can't believe you're saying this. I'm saying you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be with someone who loves and appreciates you. After I hung up, I felt more confused than ever. Was Devon right? Was this divorce actually a blessing in disguise? A chance to escape a boring marriage and start fresh with someone who made me feel alive? Or was I making the biggest mistake of my life? The next morning, Mark was gone before I woke up. He'd left another note saying he'd taken Elsie to school and would pick her up after work. I called in sick and spent the day researching divorce lawyers, trying to understand my options. Most of the lawyers I called asked the same questions. Did I have grounds for divorce? Had there been adultery? Did I have evidence of my husband's wrongdoing? Actually, I found myself telling the third lawyer, my husband is divorcing me. He thinks I had an affair. Did you? Not physically, but I've been close to someone else. How close? I explained about Devon, about the secret meetings, the emotional intimacy, the lies I'd told Mark. Mrs. Vole, the lawyer said gently, what you're describing is an emotional affair. In the eyes of the law, that's still adultery. Your husband has grounds for divorce, and if he can prove the affair, it could affect custody and financial arrangements. But I never slept with anyone. Emotional affairs are still affairs. And from what you're telling me, your husband has documented evidence of your relationship with this other man. I hung up feeling defeated. How had I become the villain in this story? I wasn't a cheater. I wasn't a bad mother. I was just a woman who'd been lonely and unappreciated in her marriage. That evening, Mark came home with Elsie and immediately started making dinner. I tried to talk to him, but he kept the conversation focused on logistics. Who would pick up Elsie from school? How we'd handle the evening routine? When we'd tell her about the divorce? We need to present a united front, he said as we cleaned up after dinner. Elsie needs to know this isn't her fault and that we both love her. Mark, please. Can't we try to work this out? Can't we go to counselling? I'm not interested in counselling with someone who's been lying to me for months. I'll cut contact with Devon. Completely. I'll block his number, delete him from social media, never see him again. Mark looked at me for a long moment. Why? Because I want to save our marriage. Do you? Or do you just want to avoid the consequences of your choices? I love you, Mark. I love our family. You love the security our family provides. You love having a safety net while you explore other options. That's not true, isn't it? If I agreed to counselling, if we tried to work things out, how long would it be before you were texting Devon again? How long before you found another reason to blame me for your unhappiness? I wanted to argue, but deep down, I wasn't sure he was wrong. Over the next few days, word of our separation started to spread. Cora called, crying, begging me to fight for my marriage. My mother called, furious, demanding to know what Mark had done to drive me away. He didn't drive me away, I tried to explain. It's complicated. Men like Mark always make it complicated, my mother said. They're so controlling, they push their wives into the arms of other men, then act like victims when it happens. But Ruth had a different perspective when she came to pick up Elsie for a sleepover. I'm disappointed in you, she said quietly, while Elsie was packing her overnight bag. Ruth, I know this is hard, but sometimes marriages just don't work out. This marriage was working fine until you decided to have an affair. I didn't have an affair. What would you call it? I was getting tired of that question. I had a friendship with someone who made me feel appreciated. You had a secret relationship with another man while lying to your husband about it. That's an affair, Lysandra. Mark was emotionally distant. He took me for granted. He never made me feel special anymore. Ruth looked at me with something that might have been pity. Do you know what Mark told me last month? He said he was worried about you, that you seemed unhappy, and he was trying to figure out how to help. He asked me if I thought you might be depressed, if he should suggest therapy or a vacation, or maybe a girls' weekend with Cora. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. He said that? He said he felt like he was failing you somehow, but he didn't know what he was doing wrong. He asked me for advice on how to be a better husband. I felt tears start to fall. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. You were too busy sneaking around with your boyfriend to notice that your husband was trying to save your marriage. Devon's not my boyfriend. What is he then? That damn question again. I don't know, I whispered. Well, you better figure it out, because you've destroyed your family for him. That night, after Elsie was safely at Ruth's house, I called Devon. I need to see you, I said. We need to talk. We met at his loft, and for the first time, the space didn't feel exciting and sophisticated. It felt cold and impersonal, like a hotel room. How are you holding up? Devon asked, pouring us both wine. Terrible. Everyone's mad at me. Mark's mother thinks I'm a horrible person. My daughter keeps asking why Daddy's sleeping in the other room. My whole life is falling apart. It's going to get better. Once the divorce is final, once you're free, we can be together properly. No more sneaking around, no more lies. Devon, what are we doing? What do you mean? I mean, what is this? What are we to each other? Devon sat down next to me on his expensive couch. We're two people who care about each other. Two people who want to be together. Do we? Do you actually want to be with me, or do you just like the excitement of an affair? That's not fair. Isn't it? You've never been married. You don't have kids. You don't understand what I'm giving up for this. I understand that you're unhappy in your marriage. Was. I was unhappy in my marriage. But now I don't have a marriage at all. Devon reached for my hand. You can have something better. We can have something better. Can we? What does that look like exactly? You and me and my 8-year-old daughter playing house? We'll figure it out. That's not an answer. What do you want me to say, Lise? That I have a detailed plan for our future together? That I'm ready to be a stepfather? That I want to move to the suburbs and coach Little League? His honesty was brutal. So what do you want? I want you. I want us. I want to see where this goes without the complication of your marriage. My marriage wasn't a complication. It was my life. A life that made you miserable. Did it? Or did I just convince myself it did because I was flattered by your attention? Devon pulled his hand away from mine. Are you having second thoughts? I begged Mark to save our marriage only to realize he was the one finally saving himself, from me. I'd lied, gaslit him, painted him as abusive to justify my affair, and by the time I was awake enough to see what I'd done, he was done trusting me and calmly pushed the divorce through for his dignity and for Elsie. 6 months later, Devon was gone. My daughter was happier at her dad's stable new home, and I was alone in the same apartment I'd once called a cage, finally understanding that I hadn't destroyed my life because Mark was boring, but because I kept choosing fantasy over the hard, unglamorous work of loving the good man I already had.